I love you, man. Bye. I got my MTV out. Savage! I'm a savage! Oh! I'm a savage! Whatever I want, I'm going to get! Whatever I want, I have to get! Yes! What's next? What's next? I gotta get it.
Law enforcement seized various freak-off supplies, including narcotics and more than 1,000 bottles of baby oil and lubricant. 1,000 bottles of... 1,000 bottles of lubricant? What? This indictment is crazy. P. Diddy has been arrested in New York yesterday following a sealed federal grand jury indictment. We will be checking out some of the most disturbing parts of this indictment and seeing what's going to happen to Diddy, what's the future is looking like for him. I would say it doesn't look very good. Let's get into it. Even before we get into this indictment, he has another lawsuit. Let's check this out before we read the indictment.
Diddy Kane's Don Richard is suing Sean Diddy Combs for alleged assault. In the lawsuit obtained by E! News, Don claims the hip-hop artist and music executive sexually abused her. The former participant on Diddy's 2004 MTV show Making the Band also claims the mogul once broke into her dressing room and began groping her breasts and butt. Per the lawsuit, in another incident, Don alleges Diddy demanded she come to his Miami home, where he greeted her while only wearing his underwear. Along with the alleged inappropriate behavior, Don accuses Diddy of more abuse towards her, forcing her to rehearse 48 hours at a time without sleep. She also claims in the lawsuit that Diddy once allegedly locked her inside a car for 2 hours as she screamed for help. Don also says she witnessed Diddy's alleged abuse towards other women, particularly against his ex-girlfriend Cassie Ventura, claiming in the lawsuit she saw him high on drugs, slamming Cassie against a wall and dragging her up a flight of stairs in his Los Angeles home. According to the legal filing, when Don came forward to support Cassie after she made the decision to leave Diddy, he allegedly lashed out and threatened her, saying in part, quote, "I end people. I shelve careers. You could be missing. You want to die today." At least 6 women have accused Diddy of sexual assault. In a March 26th statement to E! News, Diddy's attorney Aaron Dyer said, quote, "There has been no finding of criminal or civil liability with any of these allegations."
So more nonsense coming out from P. Diddy. He is in so much trouble. But again, that's just another lawsuit of tons of lawsuits that Sean Diddy Combs are going to have to be dealing with over the next couple of years. But let's get into this indictment. So here we are. This is the indictment, about 14 pages, I believe. Yeah, 14 pages. Sean Diddy Combs, a.k.a. Puff Daddy, a.k.a. P. Diddy, a.k.a. Diddy, a.k.a. PD, a.k.a. Love. All of his aliases are on display. Let's scroll down. So count 1 is racketeering. The grand jury charges for decades. Sean Diddy Combs, the defendant, abused, threatened, and coerced women and others around to fulfill his sexual desires, protect his reputation, and conceal his conduct. To do so, Combs relied on employees, resources, and influence of a multifaceted business empire that he controlled, creating a criminal enterprise whose members and associates engaged in and attempt to engage in, among other crimes, trafficking, forced labor, kidnapping, arson, bribery, and obstruction of justice. This dude thinks he is Scarface or something. He thinks he is Nino Brown. Whatever criminal boss you want to come up with, that's what he think he is. That's what he was. Sean Combs, the defendant, operated his business headquartered at various times in Manhattan and Los Angeles under a variety of United States-based corporate entities, including Bad Boy Entertainment, Combs Enterprises, and Combs Global. Corporate entities in the Combs business included, among other things, record labels, a recording studio, apparel line, an alcohol spirits business, a marketing agency, and a television network and media company. Everything that Diddy has put together over the last couple of decades. So Sean Combs, the defendant, engaged in persistent and persuasive pattern of abuse towards women and other individuals. This abuse was at times verbal, emotional, physical, and sexual. As part of his pattern of abuse, Combs manipulated women into participating in highly orchestrated performance of sexual activity with male commercial workers. So orgies with prostitutes. At times, Combs and others acting in his direction made arrangements for women and commercial workers to fly to Combs' location. That is trafficking. In fact, there was a video I saw a couple of months ago showing exactly what sex trafficking is. Check it out right here.
To really get indicted. And if you really think about it, right, R. Kelly did not go to prison for underage girls. He went to prison for sex trafficking. And if you fly a girl out for the purpose of sex, that technically is sex trafficking. Run for it, guys!
So fellas, athletes, people with money, be careful. Now, Sean Diddy Combs is a pervert and a predator. So this is the high end of abuse, but trafficking is trafficking. So be careful. Let's continue. Combs ensured participation from the women by, among other things, obtaining and distributing narcotics to them, drugs, controlling their careers, leveraging his financial support, and threatening to cut off the same using intimidation and violence. The physical abuse from Sean Combs on numerous occasions from at least in or about 2009 and counting for years, Combs assaulted women by, among other things, striking, punching, dragging, throwing objects at, and kicking them. These assaults were at times witnessed by others and included one instance at a Los Angeles hotel in or about March 2016, which was captured on video and later publicly reported, where Combs kicked, dragged, and threw a vase at a woman as she was attempting to leave. When a member of the hotel security staff intervened, Combs attempted to bribe the staff member to ensure silence. This is a true crime boss. Combs' violence was also not limited to these women. It extended to his employees, witnesses to his abuse, and others. Sean Combs used his business, the Combs business, including certain employees, to carry out, facilitate, and cover up his abuse in commercial sex. Those employees included security staff, household staff, personal assistants, and high-ranking supervisors, and others close associates acted as Combs' intermediaries, and their conduct was facilitated and assisted by Combs' control of the Combs business. So this was a true criminal enterprise with many people participating in the crime, participating in the cover-up. Anytime he did something terrible, they try to find ways to cover it up. And right here, the members and associates of the Combs enterprise engaged in and attempted to engage in, among other activities, trafficking, forced labor, interstate transportation for the purpose of prostitution, coercion, and then enticed to engage in prostitution, narcotics offenses, kidnapping, arson, bribery, and obstruction of justice. This is outrageous stuff. How Diddy's gonna get out of this one? Now I'm gonna go a little further down where they really talk about, as you see right here, the means and methods of this criminal enterprise. So among the means and methods by which Sean Combs, associates of the Combs enterprise, conducted and participated in the conduct of the affairs of the Combs enterprise, including the following. Combs and other members and associates of the Combs enterprise wielded power and prestige of Combs' role as the Combs business to intimidate, threaten, and lure female victims into Combs' orbit, often under the pretense of a romantic relationship. Combs then used force, threatening of force, or coercion to cause victims to engage in extended sex acts with male commercial sex workers that Combs referred to, among other things, freak-offs. Freak-offs were elaborate and produced performances that Combs arranged, directed, during, and electronically recorded. In arranging these freak-offs, Combs, with the assistance of members and associates of Combs Enterprise, transport and cause to be transported commercial sex workers across state lines and internationally. That is a federal, that's why the feds are here. Once you go to the next state, it's federal crime. Freak-offs occurred regularly, sometimes lasted multiple days. Jesus. And often involved multiple commercial workers. During freak-offs, Combs distributed a variety of controlled substances to victims in a part to keep victims obedient and compliant. Sometimes, beknownst to the victims, Combs kept videos he filmed of victims engaging in these acts with commercial workers. After freak-offs, Combs and victims typically received IV fluids to recover from the physical exertion and drug use. What is wrong with this guy? Damn. This guy was a complete monster. Members and associates of the Combs Enterprise, including high-ranking supervisors, commercial staff, household staff, personal assistants, and other Combs business employees, facilitated freak-offs by, among other things, booking the hotel rooms for the freak-offs, stocking the hotel rooms in advance with required freak-off supplies, including the drugs, baby oil, lubricant, extra linens, and lighting, cleaning the hotel rooms after the freak-offs to try to mitigate room damage, arranging for travel for victims, the sex workers, and Combs to and from the freak-offs, resupplying Combs with requested supplies, delivering large sums of cash to Combs to pay the workers, and scheduling the delivery of the IV fluids. In or about March 2024, during Combs' residence in Miami, Florida, Los Angeles, California, law enforcement seized various freak-off supplies, including narcotics and more than 1,000 bottles of baby oil and lubricant. 1,000 bottles of lubricant? What? Combs subjected victims to physical, emotional, and verbal abuse to cause victims to engage in these freak-offs. Combs maintained control over his victims through other things, physical violence, promises of career opportunities, granting and threatening, withholding financial support, and other coercive means, including tracking their whereabouts, dictating the victim's appearance, monitoring their medical records, controlling their housing, and supplying them with controlled substances, drugs. During and complete from freak-offs, Combs, among other things, hit, kicked, threw objects at, dragged victims at times by their hair. These assaults often result in injuries that took days or months to heal. Combs also threatened victims' careers and livelihoods, including if they resisted participating in freak-offs. Victims believed that they could not refuse Combs' demands without risking their financial or job security, or without repercussions in form of physical or emotional abuse. Combs also used physical, embarrassing, and incriminating recordings that he made during the freak-offs as collateral to ensure that the continued obedience and silence of the victims. Also, it looks like they had some guns here too. So in or about March 2024, during searches of Combs' residence in Miami, Florida, California, law enforcement seized firearms and ammunition, including 3 AR-15s with defaced serial numbers, as well as a drum magazine. Members and associates of Combs Enterprises enabled Combs' control over victims by following his directions regarding financial payment to victims, advancing or suppressing victims' career opportunities, and requiring the controlled substances Combs used to keep the victims compliant. Members and associates of the Combs Enterprises at times witnessed Combs' violence towards the victims and victims' injuries caused by Combs without intervening. Instead, members and associates of Combs Enterprises helped conceal the violence and abuse by, among other things, assisting Combs in monitoring and preventing victims from leaving locations such as hotels or his house. These associations included instances where a victim was required to remain in hiding, sometimes for several days at a time, to recover from the injuries Combs inflicted without being publicly observed. Members and associates of Combs Enterprises also assisted Combs in locating and contacting victims who attempted to flee his abuse. So we already went through the first count with racketeering conspiracy, which looks pretty damning, and so many witnesses, so many people are going to find themselves snitching, trying to avoid issues of their own to talk about and basically say that Diddy ran this entire operation. It's all his fault. I was scared. He threatened people. There's already evidence and previous situations of him being violent towards people. So he's pretty screwed on the racketeering. But this one is what we talked about earlier, the trafficking count. From at least or about 2009 up to including in or about 2018 in the Southern District of New York and elsewhere, Sean Combs, the defendant in and affecting interstate and foreign commerce, knowingly recruited, enticed, harbored, transported, provided, obtained, advertised, maintained, patronized, and solicited by any means a person knowing and reckless disregard of the fact that means force, threats of force, fraud, and coercion and described in Title 19 of the United States Code 1594E2, and any combination of these means and any combination of such means would be used to cause a person to engage in commercial acts, sex acts, and intended to aid and abet and willfully cause the same to wit Combs recruited, enticed, harbored, transported, and maintained a person, victim, as attempted, aided, and abetted, and willfully caused victim to engage in these acts, knowing and in reckless disregard that the victim was engaging in these acts as the result of force, fraud, or coercion. So we got another one, obviously, the count 3, transportation, engage in prostitution, transferring, the trafficking, that type of thing. Sean Combs knowingly transported an individual in the interstate in foreign commerce with intent that the individual engage in prostitution. Same thing here, just transforming these people, mostly probably against their will, so he can continue to do the weird freak-off parties that he wanted to do for decades. And they're trying to find ways to take his money. As a result of committing the offense alleged in count 1 of his indictment, Sean Combs, the defendant, shall forfeit to the United States any and all interests of the defendant required or maintained in the violation of Title 8 United States Section 1962. The government is seeking to take all the properties and proceeds tied to Combs' criminal enterprise, including the wealth generated through illegal activities. He is screwed. This indictment paints Diddy's criminal enterprise. He's a leader. He's referred, obviously, as the Combs Enterprise. This was an illegal criminal organization operating under the guise of a legitimate business like Bad Boy Entertainment, Combs Enterprise. The grand jury outlines how Diddy allegedly used his businesses, employees, and resources to run the operation, including trafficking, abuse, kidnapping, and even arson. This is a full indictment of a pattern of abuse. This was systematic and widespread, lasting for over a decade. And again, one of the most shocking and gross aspects of this indictment is how Diddy allegedly orchestrated these elaborate freak-off parties, thousands of bottles of lube. Disgusting. He manipulated women and forced them to participate in these extended sexual acts where they needed IV fluids. These events involved drugs, coercion, and physical violence. Even more disturbing, some of these acts were reportedly recorded by Diddy without the victim's knowledge, and the recordings were later used to control and silence the victims. So, how much trouble is Diddy in? Well, he's facing an avalanche of charges. Each could result in significant prison time. So the RICO charge, right? Under the Racketeering, Influence, and Corrupt Organization Act, Diddy can face 20 years in prison per count if convicted. This indictment describes his business operations as a front for criminal activity. Even though he was making all those hits, a lot of that was done under disgusting circumstances. Now, the more severe charges is the trafficking charge. If he's convicted of trafficking, Diddy can look at the minimum of 15 years to life in prison. This indictment alleged that he transported women across state lines and internationally for sexual exploitation. This is a federal offense, given the number of victims and the length of time his operation allegedly ran. The potential prison time could be staggering. And another thing, the forced labor, which is even more disturbing. In connection to controlling the women, he was also charged with forced labor, which can carry a sentence up to 20 years. The use of threats, violence, and coercion to force someone into work, whether it's sexual or otherwise, it's a major violation of the law. Also, this indictment also touches on attempts to bribe hotel staff and witnesses to cover up his alleged crimes. Each of these charges could add even more years to his sentence. Obstruction of justice alone can carry up to 10 years. So in total, Diddy could basically spend the rest of his life in prison. Decades. He's done. Him and Kelly, they're never coming back outside if he's convicted on multiple accounts. Just adding up all the potential prison time for all these charges, it is clear that he is fighting for his life.
Somebody going to jail.
What can Diddy do to limit the damage? Is he going to start snitching? I mean, obviously he's going to have the top tier legal team, but how is he able to get out of this? Now, Diddy was able to be Diddy and do all these things for decades and no one stopped it. He was able to beat up Cassie, had that footage out somewhere, and he didn't go to jail. Is it possible that Diddy has something on a lot of powerful people because he was one of the more popular celebrities in the last 30 years? He's been around with everyone. He partied with a lot of people. Does he have very powerful people on those tapes doing crazy acts? Is this a way to try to get himself, I don't think he's able to get out of this, but able to plead something a little smaller, a little less than, and he don't spend that much time in jail? I don't know. It may not be enough to save him from serious legal consequences, but if he drops a plea deal and he's able to orchestrate some more powerful people in what they did, of course he's going to snitch. I'm sure he doesn't want to spend the rest of his life in jail. So this can bring a lot of other powerful people in play if he can cooperate with authorities and starts snitching. We'll see in the next couple of weeks, of course. His reputation is already tarnished. He's basically going to be blackballed. That's not the point. The point is the justice for the people that he has inflicted this nonsense on. If Diddy choose to fight these charges in court, it's going to be a high stakes gamble. The legal team is going to have to try to discredit the participations. His legal team is going to have to find ways to discredit the prosecution's witnesses, try to poke holes in the evidence, and then try to win an acquittal. If the prosecution has strong evidence, as I think most of us think that they do, especially if these alleged videos from these free calls and all these witnesses' testimonies, that will be an uphill battle. So, my opinion, Diddy's going to try to find a deal. He's going to start snitching. He's going to try to plead out. He's going to find a way to save himself, spend a whole lot of money. He may lose everything because of this, because once he gets hit with this, one after another, people are going to sue. Like I said, there's a lawsuit already there that happened just a week ago. So he's in a lot of trouble. But what do you guys think? Let me know. Put in the comments below. I'm going to put the link of where I found the indictment. You can read it yourself. It's not that long. It doesn't take that long to read. Let me know what you guys think in the comments below. Thank you for taking time to watch this video. And I'll see you guys in the next video.